For over a decade, Hoonigan was the undisputed king of automotive YouTube. Built on the back of Ken Block's insane driving talent and a team of genuine passionate petrolheads, they invented the viral car video, racked up over 1 billion views with the Gymkhana series, and arguably became the Nike of motorsport. But in January 2023, the unthinkable happened.
A businessman, YouTube star, and a lover of extreme sports. Just some of the ways Ken Block has been described after his death in a snowmobiling accident in Wasatch County yesterday.
And what followed was a team of people looking to honor and preserve something legendary founded by their friend. But after a corporate takeover, it resulted in numerous members leaving and slowly becoming the most tragic collapse in automotive YouTube history. So how did one of the coolest brands in the car world end up bankrupt, heartbroken, and hollowed out by the very industry that was supposed to save it? But first, if you didn't know, I make documentary videos every single week, and it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and a sub to the channel so we can keep on pumping out these videos. And if you also want to watch similar videos to this one, I've also covered the downfall of Donut and Car Throttle, so you should definitely check those out after watching this video. Anyway, let's get back into the video. In Ken's teens, he grew up in San Diego and was heavily influenced by the skate and snowboarding culture of the 90s. He was a fanatic for anything action sports and particularly found a passion for motorsports after watching the WRC. Building a printing business with friend Damon Way, hand-screening t-shirts for brands they founded like 8Ball and Draws Clothing. Founded in 1993, they took a $10,000 loan and over the next 2 years saw sales skyrocket. By 1995, a 27-year-old Ken and a 23-year-old Damon had apparently done over $7 million in revenue. Now, Draws eventually got rebranded and shortened to DC, and then quickly released their first signature shoe, the DW1, with their first sponsored athlete, Danny Way. Thanks to Danny and their other sponsors like Colin McKay and Rob Dyrdek being revolutionary figures within skateboarding, and just generally being an awesome shoe, it quickly became one of the most popular skate shoes of all time. In 1998, DC sold Draws Clothing to World Industries, who struggled to keep the brand alive and resulted in it folding in 2002. DC's shoes, on the other hand, had well and truly integrated into action sports culture and was one of the most iconic skate brands in the world. By 2004, Ken and Damon decided to cash in on their business, selling it to Quicksilver for $87 million. After selling his stake in DC, Ken turned his focus to his passion for motorsport, starting his rally career in 2005 at the age of 37. Within a year of picking up the keys to a rally car, Ken had 5 top 5 finishes and was already ranked 4th in Rally America and was awarded Rookie of the Year. In 2006, Ken, along with his rally teammate Travis Pastrana, signed a new sponsorship deal with Subaru. Through this deal, the pair of them became known as Subaru Rally Team USA. And over the next couple of years, Ken won multiple rallies and 3 X Game medals, which is just a fraction of what he won over his total career. At this same time, there was a guy called Brian Scotto who was working as the editor for the magazine 0 to 60, a publication built around the idea of fusing the feel of UK car culture with American tuner and street car culture, essentially taking the coolness of a skate magazine and fusing it together with a car magazine. Brian and Ken shared a similar creative language that was molded by the action sports world, so Scotto became involved in the background of Ken's business ventures. In 2008, while Ken was still working as chief brand officer at DC, he hired Scotto's team at 0 to 60 to capture the precision driving film that they would aim to make look like a skate video. They filmed it in a way that actually captured the raw speed and power, and most importantly, the control. From interior shots that gave justice to the microsecond decisions being made, or the wide angles that established the arse-shaking abilities of Ken's car. This was at a time when no one had really seen this kind of thing before, and had no real idea what Gymkhana was. But when people did see it, they knew it was fucking awesome. So awesome, in fact, that a year later in 2009, Ken would become the focus of a Top Gear segment where James May introduced Gymkhana to a worldwide audience. A month earlier, DC had released its second installment of Gymkhana, which saw Ken drifting his way through the dockyards of LA. Although this was another internet phenomenon, his performance on Top Gear a month later took his recognition and awareness of Gymkhana to the next level. In 2010, Ken ended his partnership with Subaru and joined Ford to be able to compete part-time at the World Rally Championships, alongside long-term co-driver Alex Galmasino. Sponsored by Monza, the pair of them would be driving a 2011 spec Ford Fiesta RS, WRC. This is where Brian and Ken officially started working together to form the Monster World Rally team, which would later be renamed to Hoonigan Racing Division. The name Hoonigan came from hoon, which is apparently Australian slang for reckless driving, which was then combined with hooligan. In an Instagram post, Brian said, A big part of my job early on was coordinating with sponsors. Those first couple of weeks were one corporate conference room meeting after another, and the first one set the tone, an expectation for my working relationship with Ken from that point forward. To the people in the room, I was just some doofy giant with his hat sitting slightly crooked to the left. Just as the meeting started, Ken, to my surprise, stopped the opening niceties to introduce me, and more importantly, my laurels, branding me as the guy behind the guy. This WWF walkout anthem became the standard for all new partner meetings that year, and while the ego boost was certainly welcome, Ken's reasoning was very deliberate. He needed them to see me as an extension of him, someone who could make decisions for him, and operate as the creative point of contact for the team. If I'm being honest, at the time, I was far from capable of this. I still had volumes to learn from Ken, but the confidence and expectations he set made it all seem possible. In September of the same year, they would release their third installment of Gymkhana, this time filmed at the iconic Autodrome in France, where the banks reach an insane 52 degrees at their steepest point. Brian even featured in a stunt himself, driving a Segway as Ken drifted donuts round him. But this video very much influenced the culture. It was the first time a lot of people would witness the custom-built Gymkhana Ford, and was just a few months before the release of the video game Dirt 3, which would arguably bring Gymkhana and the Monster Rally team even further into the mainstream, as it was the first game to make Gymkhana and Ken's Ford all playable functions within a driving game. A 14-year-old me literally creamed in his pants when I first played this game with a steering wheel and pedals. I was hooked. So is heavily responsible for introducing many kids like me to the world of Gymkhana. In November 2011, Hoonigan as a brand was officially founded. Ken had coined "perception is reality" phrase at DC Shoes, and we were putting it to the test again. At this point, the brand was being run out of a room in my house on a shoestring budget, because while Ken had the means to fully fund the concept, he felt strongly that all good brands must prove they can grow from the garage. From here on out, the Gymkhana series would become a yearly occurrence, with every installment making it seem like it would be impossible to beat. And yet, year after year, they got better and better. From the streets of San Francisco to downtown LA, the cars got more extreme with every chapter as well. The 1400 horsepower twin turbocharged Hoonigan Mustang probably became the most iconic car of the lot, purely for its sheer ridiculousness. At this point, Hoonigan's YouTube channel was mainly a place for Gymkhana episodes, behind the scenes footage of Ken performing at shows, challenge videos, and just overall documentation of Block's badassery. However, as Hoonigan began transitioning from a clothing and marketing company into an entertainment channel, they introduced some presenters into the crew, which would arguably become the third pillar next to Ken and Brian, like Eugene aka Hert, Zack Mertens, and Vin Antara. Ron Zaras, who had been with Scotto since the 0 to 60 magazine days, also became the senior VP of the company. These guys, along with numerous others, created content directly from their donut garage. With shows like Daily Transmission and Hoonigan vs. the World, it gave viewers a reason to open the YouTube app every day. In February 2016, Hoonigan released Gymkhana 8, which was set in Dubai and then was shortly followed by another iconic appearance on Top Gear, with Matt LeBlanc drifting around the empty streets of London. Collaborations with Forza Horizon and Need for Speed that year also put Ken in the hands of millions of gamers who had never attended a rally event in their lives. Ken was no longer a niche figure. He was genuinely mainstream in a way very few motorsport drivers can ever achieve. The later part of 2016 was also huge for Scotto, as he directed his first Gymkhana film in Gymkhana 9, which also just happened to be a collaboration with Forza. The next film wouldn't come out for a few years, until 2018. This time, in honor of Gymkhana 10, Hoonigan produced an 8-episode documentary series on Amazon, which took viewers behind the scenes of creating one of Ken's Gymkhana films. Now, obviously Ken and Brian both appeared in the show, and it showed how they logistically and creatively pulled it off. Over the next few years on the YouTube channel, Hoonigan arguably reached its peak. The channel had over 5.7 million subscribers and was one of the most watched automotive channels on the platform. Shows like This vs. That and building videos really helped sustain the growth. The merchandise was literally everywhere. Hoonigan license plate frames and stickers became the unofficial uniform of car meet scenes globally, kind of in the same way that DC Shoes had once been the unofficial uniform of skate parks. And people were kind of starting to refer to Hoonigan as the Nike of motorsport, and for a while that wasn't really an exaggeration. In 2020, it was announced that Travis Pastrana would be taking over for Ken in the Gymkhana videos to bring a creative shift. After 10 films, the team wanted to move away from Ken's style of super close precision and pavement work to Pastrana's crazier and higher energy style. Travis was kind of more about dirt jumps, higher risks, and a go big or go home mentality that's been his driving force throughout his multidisciplined extreme sports career. So essentially, they kind of just wanted to freshen things up a bit. However, in September 2021, Hoonigan was acquired by WheelsPro, a company that designs and distributes aftermarket wheels, owned since 2018 by a private equity firm called Clear Lake Capital, which, if you didn't know, also happens to own Chelsea Football Club, which isn't exactly going great at the moment. Anyway, at the time, the reaction from the fans of the buyout was roughly like, okay, let's just kind of wait and see what happens. The content kept coming and nothing visibly changed. For a while, it looked like Hoonigan had dodged the bullet that hit places like Donut Media and Car Throttle. But behind the scenes, WheelsPro was on the most aggressive acquisition spree in its history. In quick succession, the company bought Throttle, Terraflex, Trans-American Auto Parts, which owns the 4-wheel parts retail chain, and a collection of other brands. This was right out of the private equity playbook. Borrow heavily, acquire everything in your sector, and bet that combined revenue will outpace the interest on the debt. Revenue across the combined company grew from 844 million in 2019 to 1.5 billion by 2022. On paper, it looked like a success story. But then, in late 2022, custom wheel sales dropped by 24.4%. High interest rates and inflation hit the aftermarket sector like a wall. The company's earning potential, the number that private equity firms live and die by, fell by 77% year on year. The whole financial model had relied on the market continuing to grow, and the moment that it stopped, the debt that had seemed manageable suddenly wasn't. The cracks were there for anyone paying attention, but most people weren't paying attention, because in 2023, something happened that made everything else temporarily irrelevant.
A businessman, YouTube star, and a lover of extreme sports. Just some of the ways Ken Block has been described after his death in a snowmobiling accident in Wasatch County yesterday.
On the morning of January 2nd, 2023, Ken Block posted photos on Instagram of snowmobiles parked outside his ranch in Woodland, Utah. Riding with a group that day, at some point, he split off from the group and headed up a steep slope on his own. His snowmobile upended on the hillside and came down on top of him. Ken was 55 years old and pronounced dead at the scene. The same day, Hoonigan Racing put out a statement. It's with our deepest regrets that we can confirm that Ken Block passed away in a snowmobile accident today. Ken was a visionary, a pioneer, and an icon, and most importantly, a father and a husband. He will be incredibly missed. Tributes for Ken flooded in from every corner of motorsports, from Formula One to the rally world to the creators he inspired. The thing that people kept coming back to in the days after his death was everything that he hadn't finished. He had been deep into development of the Hoonatron with Audi, the most technically ambitious project of his career, a fully electric Gymkhana car inspired by the legendary Group B Quattros. He was building a UR Quattro from scratch as his daughter Leah's first car. But Ken didn't just leave behind a company or a YouTube channel. He left behind a half-built car in a garage and kids who had grown up watching him drive. On the 18th of January 2023, a few weeks after Ken's tragic accident, Hoonigan released their tribute video to Ken, where members of the team shared their memories of the legend along with an update of the channel.
I wish we knew what to say, but we don't. We've spent the last 2 weeks saying goodbye to a dear friend, a mentor. I mean, so much that Ken was to all of us and to Hoonigan. And we're now, for the first time, all together back at Hoonigan, trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. We will, but right now it's definitely tough for all of us to just sort of change gears to get back into what we need to do. We do have a bunch of things that we filmed last year before Ken's accident. Some are episodes of This Versus That, some are episodes with Ken. We do want to release that stuff, and I think we'll start doing that next week. We decided it was best to just kind of go radio silent while all of us sort of dealt with this, processed it, grieved, started to kind of figure out what the next steps were. We're gonna put that stuff together, but I don't know when all of us are gonna feel like we want to get back in front of camera. None of us really want to be doing this right now, but we felt like we needed to talk to all of you about this, and and we do want to say thank you for, I mean, just the thousands and thousands of messages. And some of you may have thought we didn't read them, but we may just not have been able to reply at the time. We appreciate it all, and it's great to see all that love for Ken and for all of us through that time. We've also seen a lot of you ask if we plan to do a public event. We do want to put one together. It just takes a lot of time to plan something like that. Maybe in February, I'll probably be in the LA area. Stay tuned and we'll let you know more. Like I said, we're not really ready to be making new content. We'll share the old stuff, and obviously, you know, in this moment where times and the words of Ken Block have, you know, become kind of really finite, we're going to try to give you everything that we have of Ken, and share that as we can over the next year.
In the months immediately after Ken's death, Hoonigan went quiet as you would expect. However, a few months later in April 2023, Brian appeared on a podcast where he talked about how the team reacted to the news and what the path was for them now moving forward.
It's been a fucking brutal year, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, it was just something that I'm not going to say it's not like something you expect, right? When someone's a race car driver, especially they compete in something like rally, there's always that thing in the back of your head that you think about the what if, but like you push that back really hard. You try not to think about it, but you do, right? Because you have investors and you have other people like who are looking at the company and questioning like, well, what would happen? So you build these case studies and you do all these things in your head of like, well, what would happen, right? What would happen if, you know, Ken wasn't, even if just Ken chose to just woke up one day and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So there was like always this plan, you know, I think that both Ken and I like went over of like, what does this look like? But then it happens and the fucking plan's out the window. Because you don't think about the emotional piece of it all going together and like how that all happens. And I think the struggle for us over the past few months was getting to the point where everybody at Hoonigan really wanted to do it again. You know, and like what the path forward was, and like not just doing it because it was a job, but then also not just doing it because you felt like you owed it to Ken, right? Like you have to find something where you want to do this and like it pays to sort of the legacy and all of that. But you know, it was certainly this thing that in the first month, I think we went back and forth, right? Like, oh, we should do this. And there were definitely days where I think some people were like, I don't like want to do this anymore, right? And especially the people who were really close to Ken and like close to the team. I mean, realize Hoonigan's this like really big machine where not everyone dealt with Ken, right? Like, and some people were kind of just doing their own thing and everyone knew Ken, but like, you know, he lived in Utah and we're here in Compton. So it's like, you know, we didn't spend, you know, I spent every day with Ken and, you know, talk to Ken all the time. I mean, very rarely did a day go by that we weren't discussing something. And you know, we walk out of it. And I think at first, because, you know, Ken, especially to like myself and Ron and, you know, Derek and a lot of the guys on the team, like Ken was so much a part of our lives and the family was so much a part of our lives. When we traveled with these kids on the road, watched them grow up. I mean, Leah, who just won her class this weekend in rally. I remember she was a month old the first time I held her, you know, like, cause I remember those kids growing up. So I think if the first thing we all really just kind of were like, we don't want to deal with work. We just like, we don't want that to be a thing. And we just kind of turned everything off. So we're like, all right, we're going to turn off all the content. We're just not going to do anything. We turned off the social, we turned off YouTube, we turned off everything. And we were like, all right, we just need to really like focus on like what's right for like the family and all the people who are close and like kind of get that back up and running. And it was actually like Lucy who really was like, she just was like, I don't want to stop. Like, I don't want like Ken's passing to be something that changes potentially like Leah's career, because like Ken and Leah were working heavily in like her in motorsports. I mean, obviously she's racing rally, but she's like really interested in single seat open wheel stuff, and like they were doing tests at the end of the year that like, you know, and all this was happening, and she was like, look, we need to just make sure that this stuff also moves forward and everything. And you know, I think when you get that, you sort of look to her as the North Star of like how everyone is supposed to kind of react.
As 2023 wore on, the editorial direction started to feel uncertain. Their content felt less like a passion project and more like a content obligation. And behind the scenes, as it would later become clear, the corporate machine was tightening its grip in a way that people who built Hoonigan couldn't stomach. On the 19th of October 2023, Hert uploaded a video to his channel titled Goodbye Hoonigan. He attributed leaving due to receiving an opportunity on a Hot Wheels show and a job working with T-Pain on the Nappy Boy Automotive channel.
After starting a family, life feels a little different when it comes to how I spend my time and what I work for. And I could easily spend the next 10 years of my life at Hoonigan, but does that really secure my family's future? Does that secure my son's future? I don't have ownership in Hoonigan. I don't own any part of Hoonigan. I didn't own any part of Hoonigan before they got acquired. Now I'm kind of looking ahead and looking towards ownership. I want the next 10 years of my life to matter for my family. I don't want to just pay the rent. I don't want to just pay our bills. I want to make sure my son's good for the rest of his life. And if he's not good for the rest of his life, at least he's good for a good part of it, you know? So I'm looking ahead. But I just wanted to say, I really making this video to say thank you to you guys And thank you to Hoonigan for the last 10 years. You've made it amazing.
Honestly, you're as much of a key to Hoonigan's success as Scotto or Block. Your enthusiasm is infectious, and you're truly the people's champ. Excited for all the big things you'll continue to do, homie. Just weeks after Hert leaving the team, Brian stepped down as COO. While Scotto stated that he was still going to be involved in Hoonigan and more Gymkhana films, Brian was stepping down to take a role at a company as a lead creative for an animation company. Despite saying that he was still going to be involved, it was essentially the creative soul walking out the building. On the 14th of December 2023, Vin uploaded a video to his channel titled Goodbye Hoonigan, Full Story. The video basically took you through Vin's entire journey with Hoonigan and shares his reasons for leaving.
I've learned a lot. I've lived a better life than I probably ever thought I would have. I've done more things here than I could have ever imagined and got to call them all work. Truly insane, and I'm so fortunate to have built this life. You know, recognizing that it's no longer going the direction you want it to go is okay, and it's tough. So I've changed a lot, and I think what makes me happy has also changed a lot. And when the company got acquired, I thought, maybe I'm too old for this whole internet thing. Like, I'm 35 now. Like, I'm kind of boring. I'm no longer the crazy kid that was on Daily Transmission. Like, I'm sort of washed up in that aspect. But I was like, maybe I just don't belong on the internet anyways. Let me just do this corporate thing. I'll grow and help build the brand from the background, and that'll be satisfying. And I did the corporate thing for a bit, and it wasn't for me. I was really not happy being in an office. I don't really enjoy the whole aspect of the big business, lots of drama and politics and things, and it really curates an atmosphere of like people just not liking each other, and it was not really good for my mental health. Like, I was super depressed and started not liking all these people that I really loved previously, and that wasn't cool. So I'm not blaming WheelsPros for it. I just think that like you take these things and you try to smash them into another thing they weren't meant to be in, and it doesn't really work out. So it's fine. But yeah, it was just one of those kind of realizations that the content plan for Hoonigan has sort of shifted. We don't get to do that same stuff we did. The corporate life just wasn't for me.
Rest in peace to Best of Hoonigan. Without Hert, Vin, Dan, Supply, Grim, it's just not the same anymore. Vin, I wish you the best of your new direction. You literally changed car culture with all the OG Hoonigans. Do what makes you happy, and know you inspired a generation of Hoonigans. This video got over 1 million views, and Vin is now close to 400,000 subscribers, and has a loyal fan base, so it's clear that he kind of made the right decision. In the same month, Ron, who'd been with Scotto for years, also announced his departure.
Everybody attributes it to Ken's passing, and I get it. Like, that's the most obvious thing, right? Like, in the same year that he passed, all these guys just leave. You know, The truth behind it is that a lot of that was happening well before. And if anything, Ken's passing had kept a lot of the guys around longer. So when you have something like Hoonigan happen, and you have it as long as you did. I mean, remember, Hoonigan, it officially launched in 2011. We started marketing it in 2010. That's 10, 11, 12 years of doing
burning
the same
really,
thing.
really hot, man. I mean, burning really hot.
Yeah, burning super hot. And, you know, you have guys like, let's take Hert, for example. You know, Hert grew his own audience to an incredible level, and he was doing all this cool stuff. And opportunity comes up, and at a certain point, you're either going to put all your time and effort into continuing this collective, and, you know, obviously it plateaus at a point too. But then I think everybody feels at a point that, well, maybe there's more, maybe there's something else, maybe there's something that I have to do for myself, maybe an opportunity comes up. So you start thinking about life a little different. Everybody started getting a little bit of a different pathway. I don't think anybody there was really thinking Hoonigan is the rest of my life. Yeah, it was just time. You know, it was time for us to go and try and do different things.
All of these departures happened in the space of about 6 weeks, and in the same week that Vin and Ron were posting their goodbyes, WheelsPro announced that it was rebranding itself entirely as Hoonigan. They basically took the name of the media company and slapped it across the whole corporate umbrella. On the 11th of March 2024, a 5th member would leave, with Zack uploading a video to his channel explaining why he was leaving Hoonigan.
And the realization that now, you know, the last year or so of my life, most of my days were filled with back-to-back meetings, sales calls, pitching stuff, making decks, doing more corporate office type shit, right? Which isn't bad, But for me, I don't think it's not exactly what stokes me creatively, and it's not what makes me truly happy. And with realizing that, I need to make a change. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get back to creating. We're going to get back to having a good time. And you know what? Some of it might suck. It's going to be really hard. I can already see that. I'm going to struggle. And I'm probably going to, hate it at times. But that's what it's all about.
On September 8th, 2024, WheelsPro LLC, now doing business as Hoonigan, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in a Delaware court, citing $1.75 billion in total debt. The headlines the next morning were predictably brutal, but the thing that most of the headlines got wrong was that Hoonigan didn't actually go bankrupt. WheelsPro did. In November 2024, Brian appeared on a podcast where he clarified what actually happened to Hoonigan, dispelled a few of the rumors, and what happens to the company from here.
So they didn't go out of business.
They just went
They didn't go out of
bankrupt.
business.
They just went bankrupt.
So it's a Chapter 11. So basically with a Chapter 11, how that works, and I'm not an expert on this, but unfortunately I was tied up in it, so I had to figure it all out myself, is that they basically took all of the shareholder equity, that's like me, and they deleted it, and they gave all of that to the bank to offset the debt, and that's how that works.
So you didn't see anything?
No. It's pretty miserable.
Probably never will?
No, it's gone. That's it. Like it's literally deleted. It's not like the stocks are down. It's like they basically it's like a debt equity transfer. So basically, and that was, so you realize it's all the shareholders. So it's anyone who was a shareholder in the company, and realize that company is a company. And I think one of the most confusing things for people is because they rebranded as Hoonigan as the main company, people are sitting there going, how did those guys spend $1.2 billion? And it's like, we didn't.
Yeah, the parent company
it's
did.
50 some odd brands, and they're massive brands. American Racing, right? Like, these huge brands underneath it. And a lot of these companies were companies of founders who became shareholders in the company, right? So there's a lot of those people who were sort of involved in that. So that's basically what went down, and obviously not happy about it. But life is life, right? And like, I really have been trying to take the positive side of this, of like, I had a fucking great time running that brand with a bunch of fucking great friends, and with Ken, and we had some really, really good times. I built I think a decent enough resume for myself to continue to go and have fun and do things like that. It's unfortunate sort of how it all went. That being said, like, they are in a position now where like they're out of the bankruptcy, right? Or they're gonna be out of the bankruptcy, because I don't want to get too into the financial side of this, and I knew none of this until I was given a bankruptcy letter.
Oh no.
So I didn't know this until I had to go research all of it. Basically, it was a pre-pack, which means that like before they went into bankruptcy, they had already come to an agreement with the banks on how they were going to get out of it. So that way they went through it pretty quickly. So now like they are back and operating again with different owners. So like the owning group is gone. They've brought in a different group that's running it now. There's still a bunch of people at Hoonigan who I love dearly because they were part of my family when it was still my company, and they stayed on, right? And like, so there's still a huge bunch of people in the editorial group. So it's like, it's hard for me, because it's like I don't want to root against them. They were a lot of the guys who were the guys behind the scene were still there. And obviously you have Gary and Mike are still there. And like, Hoonigan will always be this thing I built, right? Like, I still have like a pride for it, because it was this thing that not only I built, but I built with a dear friend of mine who's not here anymore, which like makes it really a different type of sentimental element to it. But I've also realized, and not just in WheelsPro, but also in sort of the job I went and did afterwards, is like, I'm not a good employee anymore. I spent so long being an entrepreneur that like, I just don't
run the show.
Yeah, I want to run the show. So it's like, I just don't know if like the way I operate today works that well inside of like a big business anymore.
By October 15th, 2024, the bankruptcy court had approved a restructuring plan. Hoonigan had technically emerged from Chapter 11 after eliminating approximately $1.2 billion of debt and securing $570 million in new capital from new owners, strategic value partners, and Nuttree Capital Management. So, two hedge funds that most of the Hoonigan audience had never heard of now own the company. The channel still uploads to this day, but gets a fraction of the viewership it once had at its peak. The Hoonigan channel unfortunately followed the same path that we've seen many other automotive channels go down. Except this time, the channel didn't just lose its presenters, it lost its founder, its co-founder, its most beloved on-screen talent, and its financial independence, all within the same 18-month stretch. On the 6th of October 2025, Vin appeared on a podcast where he spoke about his experience working at Hoonigan, the inner workings and the culture of the company, and why everyone decided to leave.
Most common thing people think is Hoonigan died after Ken passed. Not true. Hoonigan was stronger than ever after Ken passed because we all felt like we owed it to Ken to make it work. We were all like super hyped. Everyone was like, fuck yeah, let's do this stuff. Like we're like super into it. But we were owned by a private equity company at the time. It's really hard to say, but you can't quantify growth with money directly in a lot of ways. So what I mean by that is like to build an audience, you have to do things that don't make financial sense to grow the brand. That makes literally no sense to business people. What do you mean grow the brand if it's not making money? You're like, no, you need to build sentiment while losing money. But to them, it's like, that's not real. You need to make money, build sentiment, sell product, convert people to the product. And you're like, no. Because like telling someone to buy a t-shirt doesn't make them want to buy a t-shirt. Doing burnouts in a cop car with a sticker on the side of it that says Hoonigan like makes you want to buy the t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like there's such a different level of thinking, and the suits of the company never really trusted the kids, which were like all of us. That was always really tough. Brian fought for the company a lot. Like Brian fought the CEOs and the board and stuff for the crap we wanted to do at Hoonigan. And then when he lost Ken, it was like losing someone on your side, you know? So he kind of got overran a lot more. And then, yeah, it kind of like crumbled from there. The big business politics were like people pitting people against each other because they wanted to break up friendships and stuff because they didn't like that, like we were this like clique that was a small business that got bought. And then like they didn't like that we all like operated together, you know? So like they were trying to make us all like hate each other. And like it was all just like, it turned into this like place where you used to go and be with these people who you loved and had a great time, to like you just had like resentment for everyone there because like everything was a plot line for this like greater business thing. So I don't know, I feel like maybe it wouldn't have like came back. Like it felt like we got so damaged and like we all left and then like all of us became better friends again.
Despite the YouTube channel seeming like a bit of a dead corpse, the Gymkhana series is far from dead. On the 2nd of December, Hoonigan posted a video showcasing their car from the new Gymkhana film releasing the following week. The video showed the concept to the creation of the car, which was a heavily modified 1978 Subaru Brat. The car had over 670 horsepower, a 2-litre turbocharged boxer engine, and a whole load of other ridiculousness. This is the first Hoonigan vid I've clicked to watch since selling out. The following week, on the 9th of December 2025, Hoonigan posted their new edition of Gymkhana with Travis Pastrana, which saw him driving across various terrains Australia has to offer, from the outback to Sydney Harbour. The video was directed by Brian, and within the first 4 months of being posted, it has over 10 million views. Love Pastrana's energy, Ken would be proud. Ken is 100% looking down with a grin ear to ear. He left the series to the right person/group. Great job to everyone involved. In promotion of the film, Brian said, "Personally, this was one of the least stressful films we've made because I no longer run Hoonigan. I only had one job on set, directing. I treated this shoot like a feature film and wrote a full script, which meant the crew was more in tune with what was going on." Ken had always believed that his series could outlive him. He said publicly that one of his hopes would have been that one of his kids might take it up one day. Leah Block is now 18. And in 2023, the year her father died, she won the O2WD Drivers' Championship and the American Rally Association. She's been in and around the Gymkhana conversation ever since, and the short film she's already produced in her own right may suggest she already has her father's instinct for making driving look extraordinary on camera. Today, the Hoonigan YouTube channel still exists, but it feels more like a museum than a vibrant, chaotic garage we all fell in love with. While the brand name survives under the ownership of investment firms, the perception is reality magic that Ken and Brian built has largely moved on. Most of the original crew, Hert, Vin, Ron and Zack, are now building their own empires, proving that while you can buy a trademark, you can't buy the soul of a culture. Well, on that bombshell, if you've made it this far, I really do appreciate you watching. If you're new here, make sure to drop a like and a sub to the channel, follow me on Instagram @PhatMema, and comment below what you want to see next. As always, I'll see you in the next one.